All right, in honor of American Father's Day, let's talk about dads and magic. Now, I did a whole Twitter thread on this that includes an Urza scale of how bad each dad is. I'm not going to do that here, I got too much to cover. So, Urza himself was the father of Harbin, who ended up being an ornithopter pilot and was killed during the Silex blast that Urza unleashed. Probably. There's some implication in the newer Brothers War story. He might have survived, his mother never stopped looking. Harbin himself was the father of Jarsel, who was a very famous wizard during the era of magic known as the Dark, the period between the Brothers' War and the Ice Age proper. He's known for exploring the original Phyrexia. He had a journal where he documented his travels there. It's not clear what really happened to him, though. Going to Phyrexia generally isn't good for someone's health. However, he is the great great grandfather of Joda, Archmage Eternal. Joda's some 4,000 years old now, I think, somewhere in there. But Joda himself, it's not clear if he had families earlier. Obviously, in 4,000 years, there's a lot of potential there. But the only ones we've been shown that's heavily implied is that he is probably the father of Adeliz with Joyra. It is heavily hinted at, again, in that Brothers' War story. But also she is part Gitu, part Talarian, and that feels very much like Joyra and Joda. Teferi also became a father relatively recently in his 1200 years, and he's the father of Niambi, who herself is a mother. So Teferi's a granddad, I just wanted to remind you of that. Oko is not the dad who stepped up, he's the dad who stepped out. And he is the father of Kellen, a boy he did not know he had until Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and then proceeded to manipulate him and eventually leave him behind. Dakin Blackblade sacrificed his son on his quest for power, probably to the Blackblade. Crucius, also known as the Planeswalker Bolivar, this guy, he was a pirate who, when he found out that he had a daughter, changed his ways and became a loving parent. His daughter was named Nynaeve, and she died of a terminal illness while still fairly young. Angrath has two daughters, Rumi and Jamira, who he has ended up leaving alone for over a decade because he got trapped on Ixalan. And he murdered and pillaged his way across the plane to try and find a way back to them. Thrun is the adoptive father of Malira. So Malira, as a fleshling, a Mirren who didn't have any of the stone or metal growths of the other Mirren humans, she was actually abandoned as an infant in the forests, and Thrun found her and raised her. Aura had been a father, but his family was killed during the Eldrazi incursion on Zendikar. Yuma has become the adoptive father of the cactus folk, Kiri. Voha is the sire of a number of wolves in the Selesnyan Conclave, including Bira Kazir, who, amusingly, at one point was the sole leader of the Selesnyan Conclave. Yes, Selesnya, for a short period of time, was ruled entirely by one wolf. A slightly smarter than average wolf, but still a wolf. Gerard was the father of a boy named Mixel, who is now the Golgari Huntmaster. Mixel's mother was a half-elf Selesnyan. Neither of them have gotten cards yet, but they're pretty major characters in the original Ravnica novels. And in fact, Gerard died. The reason he's a zombie is because he died to save his son. Anhelo is the father of Errant, and I guess technically also the father-in-law of Parness, her wife. Stark was the father of Takara, and this relationship is a lot of the reason we have almost the entire Phyrexian saga, because Takara gets taken hostage by the Phyrexians, to simplify it. I know it's more complicated than that. And so Stark goes and plays the Weatherlight crew in order to lure them to Wrath. Genku is a father of four now, a boy named Hiroku, a daughter named Rumio. He and Tamio adopted Nashi, and they have also now, or at least him, because Tamio's gone, have adopted this Kitsune pup. We don't have a name for this one yet. Seshiro is a old Kamigawa character who's the father of two other legends, Sachi and Sosuke. Okagachi, who was at one point the greatest kami on Kamigawa, he's sort of the father of Kyodai. Basically, his divinity got stolen by Lord Kanda, which kicked off the whole 20-year Kami War thing. That divinity eventually gained its own intelligence and spawned Kyodai. The brothers Yamazaki, Seitaro, and Sujiro, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing these names correctly, they are both fathers, and their lineage extends into the present day on Kamigawa with Norika and Heiko. Elrond is a father himself. He has 3 biological kids and a child he adopted and forgot about for years. His kids are Kolvari, Torolf, Bergi, and Halvar, the adopted one. Sorry, Halvar. Kieran Nalaar, this guy, is the father of Chandra Nalaar. I question Pia and Kieran's judgment because they sent an 11-year-old with obvious ADHD on a covert smuggling mission, unsupervised. Great job, parents. That worked out well for everybody. Gishath is the father of Itzquint. Abuelo, the name itself means grandfather. One can assume he was a father in life. Odric had a son who was killed by werewolves. Edgar Markov had children, and we know that because of his grandson, Soren Markov. We've never actually met his actual children. General Kudro of Drannith is the father of Jarina Kudro, who took over control of the city from him. Alginus Kenrith has 4 kids, 2 from the witch that ensorcelled him, and that is Will and Rowan Kenrith, and then 2 with his wife Lyndon, and that is Eric and Hazel Kenrith. Togo has kids, and we know that because there's a Togo the Sixth. Vivectus Asmadi, the Elder Dragon, is the sire of all of the Shivan dragons. They all descend from him, and there are some later I'll mention. Roga, one of the original legends, is the father of Rograk, and also an ancestor of Roshnacht. These are amazing names, people. Can't beat them. Karth the Lion is the founder of the Carthalion lineage, which would eventually lead to Jared Carthalion. Jared himself eventually becomes a father. And we don't know if Jensen is directly his son, or like grandson, or several times removed, or what. Toshiro Umezawa founded his own lineage 400 years after he was sent from Kamigawa to Dominaria by the Myojin of Knight's Reach. Tetsuo Umezawa became Bolas's imperial champion on Madara and eventually kills Nicol Bolas. It didn't take. But back on Kamigawa, we have Satoru Umezawa, who claims to also be an Umezawa. And on modern-day Dominaria, we have Tetsuko Umezawa, who has spent her life on the run from agents of Bolas, because he holds a grudge. Saidar Kondo of Jamura, he's the father of Vuel, who is the person who would go on to become Volrath, and also the adoptive father of Gerard. And all of this problem comes from sibling rivalries because of Saidar Kondo basically favoring Gerard. Oh boy, a lot more to go. Lord Kanda from Kamigawa is the father of Michiko Kanda. He's a bad dad too. Eladamri is the father of a elven princess named Elvira. She was killed and turned into a Phyrexian named Belbe. Baron, the archwizard of Talaria, is the father of Hannah of the Weatherlight crew. Darian's daughter would marry the Balduvian princess and found the nation of New Argive, and a line of King Darians would come from that. Chromium is the father of Croesus. Great parenting job there. Rorix Bladewing is the founder of the Bladewing lineage, which includes Karax Bladewing, who is himself the father of Terox Bladewing. Aaron Capuchin was the father of Danatha and Raph. Ambrose Lu was the father of Killian Lu. Baron Sengir made Irini, the dwarven princess on Ulgratha, his daughter. Multani, during the original Phyrexian invasion, transplanted a piece of Yavimaya, and it eventually sprouted its own marrow sorcerer named Muldrotha, which he considers his daughter. Cho Mano is the ancestor of Oris. Kolfanor's literal seed created the sapling of Kolfanor. Astor is the grandfather of Radha. Grandfather Karlov is the ancestor of Teysa Karlov. It's icky, we're not going to get into that. And then last but not least, Jace has recently adopted Lute, this little cutie pie. Although it remains to be seen exactly what that relationship's going to be.